Hey guys, Chris here from Carolat Farm. The garden is a bit of a jungle these days. We're approaching the second half of July. I think today is the 24th of July, so actually we're approaching the end of July. The garden is doing fantastic. Even the grass and the weeds, everything is thriving. It's actually been a dry week, but prior to this week, it's been very wet. And so we've just got so much grass that's growing in and around things. It's the best I can do just to keep it from encroaching on the actual plants. So I'm doing my best, but it's getting a little unruly here in the garden. We have been harvesting so many tomatoes. I have come into the house on more than one occasion. There have been actually 3 or 4 days with over 3.5 gallons of picked tomatoes. Now, we do pick them when they're just turning like this. They're a little yellow, a little orange, and we bring them into the house to finish ripening on the table and on the counters. So, as you can imagine, our kitchen is overrun with tomatoes, but that is because we are making so much salsa. We have so many varieties, we have these giant Amish paste, we have Romas, we have your traditional sandwich style, along with some others. And then don't forget the cherries. The volunteer cherries are here, there, and everywhere. But we have been gathering and processing so many tomatoes. I think my husband has made 8 batches or more, which means that's over 8 gallons of salsa. That's a lot of salsa. So not only are we gathering our own tomatoes, but our 2 rows of pepper plants have been providing all of the green peppers, the hot peppers, which we have a variety of, for our salsa as well. And so our salsa is very much garden grown. Now, another top producer currently, again, towards the end of July, are the cucumbers. We have been harvesting tons of pickling cucumbers. We have made Thai style pickles. We've made curry pickles. We've made bread and butter. We've made dill. We had a Japanese style cucumber salad the other day. So again, tons of cucumbers and tons of tomatoes currently in the garden. But there's one more crop that's coming in, maybe 2 more that are coming in that we need to get ready for. This next crop is okra. I have already started picking a couple of small batches. Every couple of days I come out and I harvest, I'm gonna say 12 to 20 pods, which isn't a lot, but that's because these okra plants are just getting started. And I couldn't not show you one of my cherry volunteers here. Tons of little cherries. Cherries or grapes. It's hard to know exactly what this plant is because they're very small. However, we've never purchased a little teeny tomato like this. What these came from were a jolly cherry or a jolly grape. They were larger and they had these little pointed buttons on the bottom of them. But over time, they have kind of morphed into this really small little grape or cherry-sized tomato. They produce these really delicious little tomatoes, and not only is the plant a prolific producer, but because they drop so many to the ground, they are rather prolific when it comes to reproducing as well. Don't mind the jungle that is the garden. The pathways are just so grassy these days. I need to get out here with a weed eater. I know. But what I wanted to show you, this other crop that is definitely needing our time and attention are the green beans. My green beans here are in need of being picked. This is my first batch. My second batch is just coming up, but the first batch is fully ready to be harvested. And once we do that, we will then need to process them. Sometimes we eat them fresh, but we do a lot of blanching our green beans and freezing them, and then we can pull them out of the freezer in the winter months when we don't have as much produce. And then we have squash. Our zucchini plants have not done much in the last week or 2. I think they're really done. They're green, they're growing. This is a darker zucchini right here. However, the squash beside the zucchini are still producing. And just yesterday, I went ahead and I cooked up a huge batch of squash and onions, and I went ahead and I made squash casseroles because, again, we have more produce than we can eat. We've given some away to family and friends, and we're still overrun with squash. So when you have more squash you know what to do with, make a casserole. So the real reason I wanted to come out to the garden with you today is I wanted to mention the plants that are big producers. Again, the tomatoes, the cucumbers, the squash is still doing strong. I just picked 6 sizable squash. And we've been getting squash for over 4 to 6 weeks now, which I think is pretty good because The squash bugs have not yet decimated my crops, knock on wood. And then the okra is coming in, the green beans look great. So the garden is doing fantastic. Now that I showed you around the garden a little and told you about our top producers, I want to show you some of the canning that we've been doing inside. This has been typical for the summer. We have picked once again a 3.5-gallon bucket full of ripening tomatoes that will soon become salsa. Once we have a sizable batch of ripe tomatoes, we like to begin by either roasting them in the oven, or my husband prefers to boil them, but ultimately what we're doing is loosening the skin so we can peel them. After we've peeled our tomatoes, we then go ahead and start to chop them. You can rough chop them, it doesn't really matter, but we're doing this next step in preparation for draining them. If you are like us and you prefer your salsa to be sort of a thicker or a chunkier style salsa, you will want to drain as much of that liquid out as you can. For us, the second most important ingredient in our salsa are going to be the peppers. We always start with a base of green peppers or yellow and red, whatever we have, but then we want to make sure that we spice it just a bit. And so this year we have used serranos, we've used habaneros, we've used jalapenos before, but we always use a few of our hot peppers to add a little kick. After the peppers, we have onions. Onions are another really big part of salsa, and so we tend to go 1 part onion to 1 part pepper. Now that the base of our salsa is finished, we work on chopping our hot spicy peppers. This year, we have been using a small food processor, which is very handy. We then throw it all in the big pot and start to cook it just a little. We're mostly just heating the salsa. The cilantro, however, we wait until the salsa is ready and throw that in at the very end so it still has that nice bright flavor. And then of course it's the canning. After we fill the jars, they go into that big canning bath, and then we have our finished product. A little tip I would like to share is the most useful tool we have found when it comes to making salsa has been the immersion blender. We use this with all of our salsas depending on the style. Sometimes we want it to be kind of thick and chunky, sometimes we want it thinner, but the immersion blender is by far the best tool for that. We have been very fortunate to have such a happy, thriving garden, and so not only do we have tons of tomatoes, but we have tons of cucumbers. These are pickling cucumbers, and we have done a whole variety of pickles this summer. We've done Thai-style pickles, we've done sweet chili pickles, dill pickles, spicy dill pickles, curry pickles, and then we moved on and we started doing some refrigerator pickles. Now, I did these with my niece when she came to visit. Super simple, really easy, and we had a blast. You know, what's nice about this is you don't have to have that big hot canner. When you're finished filling your jars, they just go right on into the fridge. The last really large producer that we have so far encountered in the garden has been the yellow squash. And I did mention earlier that I'm making squash casserole and freezing it. For me, this is a really handy way to use a lot of squash and to do something with it where we know it keeps well and can easily be pulled out of the freezer in the winter, popped into the oven, and then it's a wonderful accompaniment to most any meal. So if you're like us, get creative and do all sorts of fun things with your veggies. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It was really fun for me to share with you not only updates on how the garden is doing and our big producers, but what we've been doing with all of the produce, because we have been very busy and we're very fortunate to have such a happy, thriving garden. If you're like us, though, sometimes you do have a huge plethora of particular crops and you can't possibly eat them or process them all yourself. And so that's when you do want to share, and really sometimes you have to get creative and come up with all sorts of different ways in which you can use these products. So again, have fun with your produce. I hope your garden is doing as well as ours this summer, and check back soon because our garden is always changing and growing, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye guys.